Good morning, church. Good to be with you today. And I want to start with Nehemiah 5 and 6. Nehemiah chapter 5 starts with a social issue where slavery and this indentured servitude has returned to Jerusalem, and the people are being forced into it by their fellow countrymen, and it is not right. So Nehemiah takes some action, and he seeks to set things into the way that they should be, a God-honoring way, because it was prohibited in the law for the Israelites to have one another as slaves. That just wasn't right. And so he goes about this process, and it's good. And as I was going through that, I thought about, we hear even derogatorily the social justice warrior, or social justice is thought of negatively in a lot of the Christian circles because of how it's portrayed and who is advocating for social issues, that kind of thing. But here we see in Nehemiah that God is deeply concerned about a right social structure, how things are, overcoming injustices. And I heard it preached at a conference recently. It says those churches that are theologically liberal, they have some bad theology, but they will be the ones that are out in their communities. And churches that have good theology, conservative biblical doctrine, often don't go. And so to be a church that believes God's word and seeks to apply it completely and to love it, and yet to also be concerned about the state of things in the world, to be advocating for social issues. We don't want to see sex trafficking or actual racism, things like that. We want to fight against those because our scriptures command us. We don't consider race anymore. There is no Jew or Greek, slave or free. We don't consider wage inequalities to be good. People are worth what they work, no matter what. There's no male or female. Not that that's an inclusive term as modern culture uses inclusive, but that there's that sense of equality. And so we shouldn't be concerned or frightened to go and pursue those things, because we see in our text today that is pleasing to God. And then we have this attempt to discourage, and I just love what Nehemiah says. He says, they want to distract him from his work. He's always being hassled, and they called him for a meeting. And I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing an important work and cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same proposal, and I gave them the same reply. I have something important to do. I cannot be distracted. We have an important work to do as well. Our life as Christians seems like it's divided into segments, but it's all for the glory of God. We have our material labors, the things that we do that give us a material wage so that we can pay our bills. This is good and pleasing to God. If you don't work, you don't eat. That's what Paul taught the Thessalonian church, who was becoming prone to laziness because they thought, well, if Jesus is coming back right away and there's a lot of persecution happening to us, we're discouraged, and they just kind of slipped into idleness. And so Paul was pushing them and encouraging them that you need to support yourself. You need to be doing the work of the gospel still. And so we have our material work, and it seems like we have our spiritual work where we are ambassadors of God, and we want to pursue him and to advance his kingdom readily and steadily until he returns or calls us home, as the song says. And I want to go to Luke 24:45 for just a moment. And at the end of the resurrection account, right before his ascension, it says, then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. To be able to understand God's word is a supernatural work. Anybody can read it, anybody can take a look at the grammar and try to figure out some kind of moral message if they wanted to, or try to pick it apart. But only when God comes and does a spiritual work in us to open our minds can we understand. Jesus said to ask, seek, and knock, to pursue, to knock on the door like that widow on the unjust judge's house, to be persistent, and to seek. That he talked in parables to obscure understanding, something that would drive us to him, to say only you can explain. And so as you're reading scriptures, to have a habit of praying before or even during, after you read, to ask God, open my mind to what you're saying. How can I apply what I'm hearing today? How can what I've read today change my life? Love you, church. Look forward to talking to you soon again.